Hello, Management 6084 students. I'm Professor Mary Zellmer-Bruhn, and I'm going to record this short video to give you a little bit of an overview of the course and help you navigate the Canvas site and get prepared for our upcoming class. So Management 6084 is a class named Managing Groups, which is a class that's actually focused on teams, but we'll discuss a wide variety of groups and teams and organizations in this class. In my email to you, I'll point this out as well that I'm really excited to teach this class because it's a class that I actually was hired to create when I joined the Carlson School 20 years ago. So this class has been taught at the Carlson School for about 18 years since I created it. And several years ago, I kind of got pulled into other things, including working with our executive MBA program. And for some of you know that I've taught the Leading Others class in the part-time MBA program, and I've also taught a J-term class on leading and managing cross-cultural work. So this is exciting for me to get to come back to this. But a little part of this is that it's been a while since I've taught the class, and so it's taking me a little bit longer to kind of get everything up and running. So I appreciate your patience here for me to do that and get the Canvas site together and get the materials and the content together for this. I'm particularly excited about this because this is really my work, and my research is all about teams and teamwork. So this class has a really special place for me, and I'm very excited to have a chance to teach and be with you for our compressed class coming up starting March 20th. But just to give a quick overview of the course and the objectives and kind of the way the format's going to go, I expect that many of you have already taken compressed classes, but if you haven't, this will give you a little idea of what this is going to be like. But in terms of the learning objectives and the outcomes that I have established for this class, first and foremost, I want us to spend some time thinking about what are teams and how are they different from other kinds of groups, and ultimately, why does that matter? And I think equally as important, we'll be starting off the class talking about why do we even need teams? What are they good for, and when maybe shouldn't we use a team? That's about as important a question as how to make a good team is, do we even need a team? Because if we put a team in place when we don't need one, we might be doing something that's inefficient, and we might actually create some problems that we don't need to create. So kind of kicking off from that perspective, then we're going to spend some time, and I hope as a result of this class, you have a deeper understanding of how to build good teams. What are those building blocks of team design and team development? So creating teams and helping them progress and become effective. We will think about things at three levels of analysis. We'll think about individuals, the people who make up teams. We'll think of the team itself and qualities of teams that can support better performance. And we'll think about organizations, because teams are inside of organizations, and the organizational context will affect teams, and teams can affect the performance of organizations. We will spend a lot of time engaging in exercises and activities. So for those of you who've taken classes with me before, you know that I like to do exercises and experiential activities. And I think these can really help build your actual skills. And in a 3-day long class, we don't have as much opportunity to have you go out and do longer term projects or longer term assignments that might generate some of these skills. We have to think of some things in kind of short bursts inside a class to take care of some of the development of your skills and activities, but lay that groundwork for you to continue improving your skills as leaders and members of teams. We will spend some time thinking about leadership itself, and hopefully you will have a good understanding of what role leaders play in teams and teamwork. And we will spend time thinking about how do you address when there are challenges or problems, when teams aren't making good decisions or they're having too much conflict, for example. And in the end, I think you'll hopefully come out of this with a set of skills and capabilities to diagnose and understand what you can do to intervene to support more effective teamwork. So the class is 3 days long. They're Fridays, and here's just a little bit of the overview of what we're going to be talking about each week. So in week 1 on March 20th, we'll be starting out with this idea of team foundations, and I previewed that in just a moment, but we'll spend some time using a case study, the CNS wholesale grocer case, to think about, what are teams and why would you use teams? Why would you choose to put a team in place versus not use a team? What would be an alternative to using a team if you didn't want to create a team? And so those are some of the foundations of teamwork. And moving from there, kind of once we maybe establish that a team might be an effective organizational tool, then we need to think about how do we form effective teams. And that's under this umbrella of team design. And inside of team design, in particular, we'll look at composition, so who's on the team, but we'll be talking about some things like what do we know about, personality or values or other characteristics of teams and how that relates to team performance. We'll spend some time looking at structure, and with structure, we'll be talking about things like setting goals and how to get goals that work well and how to get goals that are shared among team members. And we'll also think about roles and responsibilities and norms in teams that can help structure expectations and behaviors in the team. And we'll also spend some time looking at effectiveness, particularly what does it mean to be an effective team? How do we think about defining performance and understanding how we think about rewarding performance in teams and how that might affect performance will be another thing we'll talk about in the first class. So then when we hit our second week, which will be March 27th, we will focus on the internal dynamics of teams. And what I mean by internal dynamics are the relationships and interactions and behaviors that go on among team members inside the team. And those are the things that can play a big role in performance. So first we'll look at this idea of processes, and processes are behaviors, interaction behaviors, and include things like communication, conflict, decision making, information sharing. So those are some of the processes we'll address, but think about what role do processes play, what are more effective processes, less effective processes, and if we have some challenges with processes like too much conflict or conflict that's unproductive, what can we do to, first of all, prevent that? What can we do to intervene and reduce it if it's happening in the team? The second kind of internal dynamics that we'll spend some significant time looking at in the second class are what I call psychological states. And psychological states are things like trust or cohesion, or other kind of cognitive frameworks that affect team performance. So behaviors are processes, but then there's also these kind of emotional, psychological characteristics that people come to believe about the team. Commitment to the team. So you've probably all heard about organizational commitment. We can have team commitment. We can have identification. Do people identify with the team? So those are psychological concepts, and we'll talk about which of those seem to matter and how do you support the development of these positive psychological characteristics or states in teams to improve team performance. And then finally, when we hit week 3, this week I call team context and external dynamics. This gets at what I mentioned earlier about organizational level, that teams are embedded in organizations. They're also embedded in things like cultures and communities. And so we'll talk about the need for teams to care about how they interface with leaders and with other organizational members, with other teams in the organization. So things like boundary spanning or external activities become important. Teams that are insulated and internal focused only do not perform very well. So there is a need for both managing those internal dynamics and external dynamics. And then when we think about different contexts that teamwork can occur in, when we think about globally, for example, multicultural teams, multilingual teams, we'll talk about the sort of special challenges when we have team members who come from very different, diverse backgrounds, and some of the added challenges that that can create. And that usually gets us into the idea of sometimes distributed teams as well. So teams don't always work face to face. They don't have to be global to be virtual, but we'll spend some time thinking about, those extra challenges and how to support teamwork when people don't necessarily get to have face to face interaction. So that kind of summarizes the overall profile of the class and the topics and content that we'll be covering in these 3 days that we have together. So, just a few other final little things as overview as you start to get prepared and get started to work on class. We have a couple of different kinds of reading materials required for the class. First, there is a textbook called Making the Team. This is the textbook cover over here. And this textbook I have decided to assign in what's called inclusive access, which means that you are automatically charged for an ebook version of this, and it's placed into Canvas. So if you go into Canvas, you'll be able to find the link there and sign in and access the textbook. It's significantly lower price than it is to buy a hardcover textbook, a hard copy textbook, but even lower price than the ebook charges from Pearson. So you have that book already in the Canvas site, and please go as soon as possible now to access that, because in a moment what I'll suggest is that if you haven't been familiar with these compressed classes, I'd highly recommend that you spend some time, maybe particularly this week of spring break, getting a little bit ahead in reading, because there's a fair amount of reading for each class, and if you can knock off some of the readings for the first week, I think you'll be ahead of the game, and the whole experience in those 3 weeks will be, I think, more pleasant overall. There's also a small course pack that you need to purchase from the University of Minnesota bookstore that has case studies in it. We will be conducting a variety of case studies, and you will have to complete at least one of these as one of the graded assignments as well. So those are the two requirements for the class. We'll be meeting in 135 Carlson, and our class times for meeting are from 8 to 5 on our 3 days of meeting. I just want to have a quick aside about that for that in-person meeting. Generally speaking, when I teach compressed classes, I require attendance, and I expect that you'll be there for all of the classes. In a compressed format, to miss one day would mean you'd miss a third of the course experience and content, and I just don't think that's acceptable to achieve a class, a grade, or be considered completed in the course. Now, of course, we do have this emerging situation of uncertainty with the coronavirus, and we are making plans as a school and as a university about how to address this. And what I want to say to you is, if you are not well, then absolutely please don't come to class. If we have other information about meeting in person that changes, we will be addressing that. And what I'd like to say to you, that if you have any questions at all, aren't feeling well, don't feel you should be attending class, please contact me, because we can do some things like maybe at least get a Zoom classroom opened up and record my presentations so that you can at least listen in and watch the slides. We probably can also get your teammates to get a Zoom meeting opened up, and if we have breakouts, you can meet with them. So again, we will be working to be flexible and accommodate things, so don't feel concerned if you're ill that we won't be able to manage this. But apart from that, I would expect you to be in class. So again, dynamic emerging situation that none of us have experienced before. We'll work with everything that comes at us in the next month here, but for now, we're going to plan on being face-to-face in 135 Carlson for our our 3 Fridays of meeting. All right, I just want to spend a couple minutes going over the assignments and requirements for the class. Each week, there'll be between 3 and 5 chapters assigned from the textbook, And each week there'll be one to two case studies that you'll have to read as well. In terms of graded assignments, there are mostly individual assignments in the class. There's one small group assignment that I'll get to in just a moment. But what we will do is one of the assignments is a case write-up. And so there are 4 cases, and you will choose one case to write up. So the first one is already open and available on Canvas, C&H Wholesale Grocers. The case write-ups, the details are in the syllabus, but basically it's about a 3-page write-up. You can have extra pages if you want to have other figures or other background information or linking to other topics that you think could support your arguments in the case write-up. But you choose one, and it can be any of the 3 Fridays. It's your choice. For the other cases, you will read them and be prepared to discuss them, but you don't need to do any formal write-up for those. The second individual assignment are what I call reading analysis. And again, for a few of you I know who took my 6110 class, this is going to be familiar because it's something that I use in that class. It's an assignment that you do before you come to class, and you do it on Canvas, and you answer 3 basic questions, and you post that on Canvas. And essentially the purpose of this assignment is to get you to read ahead of time and be prepared for our in-class discussion. In this case, the reading analysis is the chapters of the book and the case. So again, if you didn't do a formal case write-up, you would do the reading analysis. So just to be clear, you will do one case write-up. If you did, let's say for March 20th, you did the CNS Wholesale Grocer case write-up, then you don't do a reading analysis that week. But then you would do a reading analysis for the 27th and for April 3rd. So basically there's 3 assignments here. You do 1 case and 2 reading analysis. And you do the reading analysis for the days that you don't do the case. Okay. Then there'll be 3 quizzes. Again, people who've taken any of my compressed classes before are familiar with this as well, that each week I kind of treat as its own separate module. And we have a quiz each week. So the quiz will open up Friday at 6 p.m. It'll stay open Sunday until 11:59 p.m. You'll take the quiz on Canvas, and it's timed. So when you start it, you'll have a limited time, usually an hour. I will think about that depending upon the content I end up putting into the quizzes, but usually an hour. So you start the quiz, you have to finish it in an hour. But you have a window from 6 p.m. Friday to 11:59 p.m. Sunday to finish it. So it has to be finished by 11:59. Don't start it at 11:50 because you'll get cut off at 11:59. But there'll be those 3 cases. I'll give you more details in class, but usually they're going to be a mix of multiple choice, matching, short answer, kind of, and maybe a short essay question on the quiz. I found over time it's just, I think, better overall to kind of test the content and have you review the content every week rather than try to have one large comprehensive exam at the end of class. Then there's another individual assignment that is called an article review, and it shouldn't be up here. It should just be down here. So on the discussion forum in Canvas, you are required at some point in class, either for the 20th, the 27th, or April 3rd, to go on your own and find an article about teams. This could be a Harvard Business Review article, it could be a Sloan Management Review article, California Management Review article. I think it would be great if some of you chose to go out and look at the research literature and looked at Academy of Management Review or Organization Science. Those would be longer and more difficult to read for sure. But you need to identify an article that is related to the topics of the week. So for example, if you chose to do your article review for the first week of class, for March 20th, we're talking about team foundations. Do you need a team or not? So maybe you go search and see if there are some articles written about how do you decide if you should use a team or not. And maybe you find something at Harvard Business Review and you read it. What you'll do is provide a link to that article on Canvas in the discussion forum so that your classmates could access it if they'd like to read the article. And then you provide a little review, explain what the article's about. And in particular, I'd like you to talk a bit about how does it either extend some of the readings from the textbook, or does it challenge or contradict those readings? And ultimately, what's your recommendation? Should people read this? Is it an absolute? Is it kind of a nice to read? What do you think? So you can put that out in the discussion forum. And you need to just do one of these. So you choose your week, choose the topic, and identify an article and put that review out there. And it's important to state that as participation, part of your participation grade will be you looking at others' reviews, looking at others, and maybe commenting on some of those. You don't need to look at everyone, you don't need to comment on everyone, but it's just another format or source of participation. There is a participation grade in class, and it will be graded based on in-class discussion, on participation in the online discussion, and then you'll see in the syllabus the 1-minute memo. At the end of each class, I give you a chance to kind of follow up and ask a question, or maybe write something down that you didn't get time to share in class, and that's yet another way that you can participate in class. So multiple ways that I'll be gauging participation, but one that I really recommend that you do is go out to the discussion forum and take a look at what people are posting there for their article reviews. And then that brings me to the final assignment, which is the team assignment, and it's called a team challenge. And it's a pretty straightforward and small assignment. It's not a large team project by any means. What we'll be doing is in our first class on March 20th, I will have you form teams, and you will work with those team members, and we will split the teams up. So let's say we have 5 teams. 3 teams I'll have do the team challenge on March 27th, and the other 2 on April 3rd or something like that. And what the team challenge is, it's detailed in the syllabus, but you will either pick a team that one of your members is working with and diagnose some challenge it's having and identify some interventions that you think you could suggest. And you'll write a 1-page summary of this analysis and post it to Canvas, and you'll be prepared to present about a 5 or 10-minute presentation about this little mini case study you've done in class. Or you could identify a problem that is occurring across multiple teams that you're familiar with, and then do the same thing. So it could be focused on one team, or it could be a general problem that many of you face and you could be discussing. Again, more details available in the syllabus and in the assignment details on Canvas, but just know that you will each just be doing one of these. You'll be put in a team and you'll be doing one of these, and it'll either be on March 27th or on April 3rd. And this little table is replicated in the syllabus, but it just shows the breakdown of the percentage of all of these things. So everyone will do 2 reading analysis, everyone will do 1 case write-up, 1 article review that's posted on the discussion forum, 3 quizzes, 1 team challenge, and then we'll have the participation grade. Okay, so I just thought maybe this would help visually to understand those assignments a little bit better so you could see across a week. I mean, they have 2 examples of this. So we have 3 weeks of class, right? So you have a choice to write a case write-up. You have to do 1 case write-up. So let's say you decide you're going to do the case write-up on week 3. This is Disney teaming case, okay? So that means you don't do the write-up on 1 or 2, and you have to do the reading analysis before class on the 20th and before class on the 27th, okay? You can decide to do a 1 article review. Maybe you decide to do that during the 2nd week because you've decided the internal dynamics are the most interesting challenge for you right now, and you want to look at team conflict, and you want to look an article up for that and put that on the discussion forum. So then you don't do 1 on week 1, you don't do 1 on week 2. And then let's just say that your team is assigned, you get put in a team and you're assigned to do your team challenge on April 3rd, so you don't do that here. Okay, so you would be, your workload would be, all right, week 1, you're going to have a reading analysis. Week 2, you have a reading analysis and an article review. Week 3, you have a case write-up and a team challenge. And everybody has a quiz every week, right? And everybody should be participating across the class in terms of in-class participation, discussion format participation, and 1-minute memo participation. Hopefully I'm not beating a dead horse here, but let's just say there's a different way around. You decide to do the case write-up for the first week, which is the CNS wholesale grocer. Just to make this very, very clear, you wouldn't do a case write-up anymore, then you're done. And you would not do the reading analysis this first week. You'd do it week 2, and you'd do it week 3. And again, maybe you chose this time, somebody said, I want to do the article review in week 3, and you wouldn't be doing one here. And maybe your team challenge was assigned for the second week. You would not be doing it here. Again, everybody would do quizzes and everybody would be doing participation across the class. So I hope that makes it a little bit clearer in terms of you get to make these choices. You get to choose which case you want to write up. And then the other weeks you're doing reading analysis. And your article review, you just are going to pick one and you're going to do it for the week that you choose. And then the other weeks you don't have to be doing that. The other weeks you should be on the discussion forum, maybe looking at what other people are posting, commenting, giving some feedback, raising up your participation grade. So with that, that's a very quick overview of the course, and I hope helps you think a little bit more about what you can be preparing, maybe what you can be doing during spring break. What I really recommend is get onto Canvas, make sure you can access the textbook, and get started reading. For the first week of class, Thompson, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 5, and the CNS Wholesale Grocer case are your readings for the first week. So I think you could probably get a head start on that, possibly even knock out one of those article reviews already before we even hit class. And I think that will definitely help ease maybe a little bit of that stress of what happens in a compressed class. Feel free to email me if you have follow-up questions, and I'll keep working on Canvas. And the site's not 100%, but this week it should be getting completed, and I can follow up if there are any other questions you have. Thanks.